In this video, we're going to talk about why a $400,000 Bitcoin might be 1,000 days away. And that is not hyperbolic. That is nothing, too overly dramatic. I don't think. We're going to be looking at past history and charts and understanding of where we are in Bitcoin's journey, especially in relation to gold, to get to that concept of Bitcoin being over $400,000 in 1,054 days. Now, as much as you like clicking on the Bitcoin number go up videos because they're fun, the reality is that the Bitcoin price has not been so much fun for people right now. In fact, this is the most painful time in the last 3 years for Bitcoin holders or for the Bitcoin market, right? I've had more difficult conversations with people in the last couple of weeks here than the previous year before that, more or less. Definitely a really, really difficult time. If you've been holding spot Bitcoin, not nearly as much of a difficult time, but the Bitcoin stonks are crushed. The Bitcoin leverage positions are crushed. The Bitcoin margin calls are either happening, some have been margin called, many, many more are fearful that they're going to be margin called. Lots of pain, lots of frustration. Everyone that did various kinds of leverage trades, which I obviously don't recommend, a lot of those blew up. A lot of people that went extra long, did calls and did all kinds of things, there's an abundant number of ways you can lose money, even in Bitcoin, even when over the course of the last 5 years, we're up 387%. If your time horizon is too short, you can still get wrecked. If your expectations are set too high, or you're penalized for not having certain expectations met, then you have very real problems. So I know it's hard. I know it sucks. I know it's a bummer. But the point of this video is not to inject too much hopium, but to hopefully get a little bit of a perspective, because there are moments in time where it feels like Bitcoin's going to do nothing but go up, and that moment is not right now, right? You may remember in March of 2024, when Bitcoin hit $74,000, that was the first time ever Bitcoin hit an all-time high before the halving. And that moment, that 2-week period, it felt like Bitcoin $500,000 is inevitable by the end of the year. Like, people thought that, right? Like, Bitcoin can't do anything but go up, right? And of course, what did it do after that? It went sideways for 8 months. And then what did it do? It went straight up again after the election. Everyone said, oh, Bitcoin only goes up. And then we're at this point here where it feels like all Bitcoin does is go down. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. We've gone sideways for 5 months, and then we went down like 35%, 25% or whatever. 35% between early October and late November. Like, this is what's going on. So let's talk about it. I do believe a $408,000 Bitcoin by October 22nd, 2028 is possible. Am I guaranteeing it? No. I do know for a fact. I have no idea what's going to happen. But this is just something to think about. These are things to think about. I know it sucks right now. The Bitcoin's down. It's been pretty brutal. It's not the deepest price correction ever, but it's a deep price correction after a very long period of time, basically a year of being sideways. So I know it's a bummer. I know that your timeline is very negative. I know that a lot of you have negative emotions, but the point of this video, the point of this 20-minute video, is to hopefully help you buy back an hour of peace of mind, to encourage you to go touch grass, be with your family, hug your dog, kiss your kids, whatever, right? Why? Because while this moment is peak Bitcoin fear, it is peak dollar greed. People that had dollars on the sidelines, they're greedy, right? They're not buying it because they're hoping it'll go down a bit lower, right? Sure, Bitcoin's going down, but the dollars are going up, right? This is euphoria. It doesn't feel like euphoria if you've been owning Bitcoin, but this is euphoria for the bears. This is euphoria for the short holders, right? Bitcoin is digital gold. It is a superior version of gold. Market cap of gold is well over $25 trillion, actually $28 trillion now. And Bitcoin is about 8% of the market cap of gold. The reason why it's important is that if Bitcoin were to make an all-time high in relation to gold, at gold's current market cap, that would be $170,000 per Bitcoin. And historically, the last 4 or 5 times that Bitcoin has broken an all-time high denominated in gold, it has at least doubled said value against gold every time, more or less. Meaning that if Bitcoin were to reach an all-time high when priced in gold at some point in the next couple of years, you should expect the market cap of gold, or excuse me, the market cap of Bitcoin, It's probably going to be about 16% of the gold market. That means that a mere doubling alone would be $340,000 per Bitcoin at today's prices. Now, I know, $340,000 of Bitcoin, Luke? What are you, insane? Bitcoin's only gone down. We have the Strategic Reserve. We have Texas buying Bitcoin. We have the Czech Central Bank buying Bitcoin. We have the Donald Trump family empire buying $2 billion of Bitcoin. We have Vanguard caving, JP Morgan's caving, everyone's caving. Oh, Luke, so many bullish catalysts, and Bitcoin is down. How could you possibly say $340,000 of Bitcoin is actually not that absurd? Well, again, because market sentiment is not always reflective of the reality. There are periods of time where, literally the 2-week period from, or I guess the month and a half period from late January into early March of 2024, where Bitcoin went up 60% over the course of a few weeks. Now, I know, a lot of you watching have forgotten what a 60% move in a month and a half feels like, okay? I get it. It's annoying. You haven't felt that. You've only felt that twice, actually 3 times in the last 3 years. You felt it in February and March of 2024, the first time. You felt it between September to late November 2024, about a 2-month period. That was an 80% move in the course of a few weeks. And the third time you felt it before that was a 50% move over the course of a month and a half in early 2023. Okay, those are basically the 3 really exciting times that we've had since March of 2021. Okay, like this whole time, this whole time, in the last 5 years, in my opinion, those, let's say, cumulatively 4 to 5 months have had the vast majority of the excitement of the last 5 years. Nobody was excited in mid-2021 when Bitcoin fell 50% in the course of a month, right? And even though Bitcoin went up 100% in the following, couple of months, there wasn't nearly the euphoria as there was in early 2021. Then, of course, we had the bear market. We went down. Then we had that 50% pump, that first one, and then that second one from, I guess if you want to zoom out a little bit, that 130% pump from October 2023 to March 2024. Then you had that last one in late 2024. And since then, we have been basically flat. And now we're looking at a very real possibility that Bitcoin is going to end 2025 as a red year. I did not expect that. I admit that, and I'm not ashamed of admitting that, because I'm not one of these crypto traders out there saying, oh, I'm a TA genius, I can predict Bitcoin, buy my affiliate course, right? Of course, I have my guesses. Of course, I have my predictions of what I think is going to happen. But I make it very clear in all my videos that just because you have an expectation of what's going to happen does not mean that you should leverage yourself or place yourself with the requiring a certain outcome and having extremely painful results if you don't get that outcome, right? So my point is, I do think, call me crazy, I know that sentiment is pretty dead right now, but I do think that we're going up. Sure, we're at 93 grand at the time of recording. Maybe we go down to 70 grand. Maybe we do. Maybe we even wait to 60K. I think it's totally possible. There are macro headwinds. Bitcoin maybe is selling off because of liquidity questions. And if there's a stock and bond sell-off, even if it's brief, like the tariffs back in early 2025, back in March and April 2025, if that happens, I totally think we can go to 60K. Totally think that. No problem. However, I'm not holding cash waiting for that. I'm not. It'd be great if that happens. I'd be happy if that happens. But at the end of the day, I think $340,000 Bitcoin is on the table. While there is a very real case to make that gold price, the gold market cap, trends down in US dollars because gold has had a tremendous rally over the course of 2025, there's a very real case to say that gold needs to consolidate. It's ended its parabolic top. It's going to be flat or maybe even negative over the next couple of years. I think it's a valid argument. At the same time, we are hard money maximalists, and at the end of the day, gold is undervalued against stocks by a factor of 15 to 20, right? So sure, there's a case gold goes down, but there's also a very real case that gold actually goes up over the next couple of years. And so we'll get to that more in just a moment. But to go back to the Bitcoin price chart, the last time Bitcoin traded below $20,000 per Bitcoin was January 14th, 2023, 1,054 days ago. Okay, 1,054 days ago, Bitcoin is January 14th, 2023. And that day was a very special day for me personally, because that day was the day that one of my most viral threads went viral on Twitter. I met a bunch of people there. So that is very special to me. And so it's interesting, the post I made on January 13th, 2023, so the day before, was that we have less in common with the near future than ancient past. That was the post I made then. And so now here we are, 1,054 days later from that post, and I still believe we have less in common with the near future than ancient past. That post I made was correct, and it went relatively viral in the Bitcoin community, and here we are. We had less in common. Guess what? We're up 347% since I made that post 1,054 days ago. Okay, so where do I think we're going to be 1,054 days from now? Well, I think it's totally possible we'll go up another 357%, right? That period of time of 1,054 days with the same percentage return takes us to the date of October 22nd, 2028, at a Bitcoin price of $423,000 per coin, which ironically is similar to the number of Bitcoin doubling its all-time high in gold at today's price, which would be about $340,000. That's a multi-six-figure Bitcoin. But let's say gold does go up 20% over the next 1,054 days. This would put Bitcoin at $408,000 if it does a 2x against the gold all-time high. So my point in this video is not to say I know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know we're going to print more money, and I do know it's incredibly improbable that the Bitcoin network dies. And therefore, I think it's very likely that Bitcoin just trends up when denominated in dollars. It's trending up faster in pesos, faster in lira, but is trending up in all the fiat currencies, including Bitcoin. With volatility, right? We crashed 50% in 2021, sure. Then we crashed 70% in 2022, sure. And then we crashed like another 20% or 12 to 20% in 2023. Then we crashed in early 2024 from 74 grand to 49 grand, about 25% peak to trough. We crashed again, about 20%. We crashed again. I know it gets sickening when you're in the middle of it, especially after, because it's not only the price decline this time. What's different is that we've been flat for a very long period of time, right? Only moving 10% over the course of literally a year, right? And I think that's why, in particular, this crash really, really hurts. But the point is, I'm encouraging you to zoom out and think about this, right? Bitcoin at $126,000 a coin to go to $252,000 a coin. Okay, that is a 2x. Okay, going from $90,000 a coin to $250,000 a coin is a significantly greater return, right? It doesn't matter at the end of the day if you bought Bitcoin at $16,000 in December of 2022 or $30,000 in July 2023. Either way, you're happy and you don't care about the recent price dip. However, that's a doubling of your return. Buying Bitcoin at 16,000 doubles your percentage return. If you bought at 30 grand, you're up 209% since then, right? If you bought at 16 grand, you're up 457%, right? So my point is, for those of you on the sidelines that are holding cash, hoping we go lower, you may be right, we may go lower, but I'm telling you, I really think a lot of the downside risk has been stripped out, because historically, every time Bitcoin crashes 30, 50, 60, 70%, it's a better time than, when it's doing the inverse, right? So I do believe that in terms of a timeline, we are closer to a $200,000 to $400,000 Bitcoin than we are to a $20,000 to $40,000 Bitcoin. I know that statement might sound preposterous. Oh, Luke, you're a moon boy. You're so bullish. Blah, blah, blah. But think about it. I mean that literally true. Okay, a $20,000 Bitcoin was 1,054 days ago. Okay, I know that maybe in our, linear human minds, $20,000 Bitcoin may feel like it's yesterday. It's not. We've not seen a $20,000 Bitcoin since January 14th, 2023. Okay, I think within the next 1,054 days, we're going to be well above $200,000 of Bitcoin. We have less in common with the near future than the ancient past. And so we get very used to the current price that Bitcoin is at on the way up and on the way down. We get very comfortable to it, and we assume it's going to be around here forever. And it's not. People were comfortable when Bitcoin was $16,000. Oh, Luke, it's going to be down here for a year. It wasn't. It was down there for barely 2 months. right? People were used to the 40, 50, 60K range in this zone in mid 2024 because that's what they were used to seeing a few years earlier in 2021. And then for the last year, people have been used to seeing Bitcoin between $90,000 to $120,000. And now that we've gone back down below 100K, people are angry. People are upset. And guess what? 1,054 days from now, I think $200,000 to $400,000 Bitcoin is going to be boring because we humans are really bad at managing emotions. And so my point is, the last 1,000 days have been more or less boring. Sure, there were three 1-month periods that were really exciting, but besides that, the other 33 months of the last 36 months were not nearly that exciting, right? Bitcoin can still outperform the rest of the world and be boring, if not frustrating, 90% of the time. And this is why it's so important that you focus in the long term, because it's the days that matter. It's time in the market, not timing of the market. The same thing's true with stocks. The same thing's true with anything else, right? Most are going to be disappointed. So point is, I totally think we'll be at 400 grand Bitcoin in 2028. I think that's where we're going. Maybe earlier, maybe later. I don't know. Don't quote me on it. But I think 400 grand is more likely than going back to 40 grand. I think 200 grand is more likely than going back to 20 grand. I'm even more confident in that former statement or that latter statement, right? And at the end of the day, none of this matters, right? None of this matters. Okay. What matters is, does Bitcoin work? If Bitcoin works, if Bitcoin is what you think it is, it's going to hundreds of millions of dollars per coin. You just got to wait. If Bitcoin is not what we think it is, then it's a scam and it's going to zero. But I'm very confident, personally, I think it is what we're saying it is. Gold is the telegraph. Bonds are the phone lines. Stocks are the television stations. Bitcoin is internet. So let me ask you, are you watching this video on a television station? Are you watching it over the telegraph? Are you watching it on a phone line? No. You're watching it on the internet. You are an internet maxi in the same way that you're an electricity maxi, in the same way I'm a clothing maxi, in the same way that I'm a food and water maxi. I'm a Bitcoin maxi. It's just the obvious technology. I'm a circle and wheel maxi when it comes to driving my car. I'm a gasoline maxi when it comes to filling my car. And most people right now look at Bitcoin and they say, oh, Bitcoin's high risk. Why would you use Bitcoin? I don't understand it. But they don't understand everyone's going to become a Bitcoin maxi, even when that term is long dead or retired, and nobody's ever going to understand how it works. They just know that it works, and it's what everybody uses, right? Nobody knows how the telegraph works. Nobody knows how the internet works, and yet you're using it right now. It's going to be the same thing. And my point here is that the internet is so big of a deal. It captured all of the value, all of the communication of the telegraph, of the phone lines, and the television stations combined together in one single network. Bitcoin is the same thing. Bitcoin is a superior bearer asset to gold by a factor of 10. Bitcoin is a superior bond because it is a superior long-term capital savings than a bond. And it is a superior stock because it's a superior equity of capturing the upside future productivity of the human race. It's a better bond than a bond. It's a better stock than a stock, and it's better gold than gold. Now, Bitcoin's coming after gold first. It's coming after the most ancient technology first. Then it's going to come after bonds. Then it's going to come after stocks, or maybe vice versa, right? But the point is, Bitcoin is a bigger deal than the bond market, stock market, and bond market combined. So $400,000 Bitcoin by 2028 may sound like a pipe dream to you right now. And I get it. I'm going to get a lot of comments down below. Oh, Luke, you're just coping. Oh, why are you moving the targets? Oh, Luke, blah, 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 blah. I'm not. Okay, and if you don't believe me, you can go look at my videos. Okay, I made videos in December of 2022. You can go look back at my posting timeline, like 500 videos ago. I was making plenty of videos in late 2022 because you may not remember, but people in late 2022, and a lot of you watching don't remember because you're newer, right? A lot of you watching are newer to Bitcoin. You started buying Bitcoin in the last 1 to 2 years, and so you don't remember this. So let me, explain this to you. People in 2022 totally thought Bitcoin's going to 12 grand. There were so many technical levels that the people were posting the bear porn charts. They had all these, oh, people are going to get margin calls. Oh, look at the liquidity maps. Look at the TA. If you compare to previous cycles, so many people, so many traders were convinced Bitcoin was going to $12,000. It became a meme of itself, right? And if you were around here at this period of time, comment down below please, that you remember this so that the people that are newer can see that what I'm saying here is actually true, okay? If you scrolled any timeline on Bitcoin Twitter, Bitcoin Talk Forums, Bitcoin Reddit, the YouTube comment section, any timeline, when I was pounding the table, when Bitcoin was $16,000 saying Bitcoin's probably going to go up from here, people roasted me in the comments saying, oh, Luke, you're dumb, and Bitcoin's going to 12 grand. But again, the whole point of those videos was to say, we might go to 12 grand, we might go to 9 grand. But I think it's an asymmetric bet in your favor. And I think the same thing is true here today. Why? Because fundamentally, from a technological perspective, nothing has changed about the thesis. Bitcoin in the last few years has gone from being about 3% of the gold market cap to 8%, when really it should be more like 500%, in my opinion. So if Bitcoin's $400,000 by 2028, 1,054 days from now, and assuming that, this is assuming the gold market cap goes up by 20%, my question to you is this. Is it so unreasonable? As much as it might feel like 400 grand in Bitcoin is absurd or too hyperbolic or too ambitious, as much as that might feel wrong because your emotions are playing tricks on you over the course of the last few months, as much as that might feel wrong, is it so unreasonable to remain bullish and optimistic and say that the internet is going to be worth 16% of the Telegraph within the next 1,000 days when we're currently sitting at 8% already? I don't think that's so absurd. The Bitcoin USD power law also agrees that $350,000 by 2028 is a quote-unquote fair value with the median green trend line. And even if we're at extreme fear at $130,000 per Bitcoin, that's still a comparable return to the general stock market, right? This is what I'm referring to. This is the chart I'm referring to. I know that looking at 2028, let's see, let's get to October 2028. Okay, there's October 2028. Okay, right there. Now, I know that a spread between $124,000 to $1.1 million a coin, I know it's a long spread. That's literally an order of magnitude. However, the beauty of the power law is that it's predicting which order of magnitude Bitcoin's going to fluctuate within over a long period of time, right? It's done that so far through 8 orders of magnitude. It's been pretty consistent. So my point is, I have no freaking clue what Bitcoin's going to do, right? I feel like Michael Saylor at times that I'm on calls or talking to people or trying to comfort people, where the clip where Michael Saylor is like screaming at people, don't sell Apple stock. Do you understand? I can't remember it by quote. I know other Saylor quotes by memory, but not this one. But basically Saylor's point being, you're trading Apple stock at the very beginning in Genesis of them producing the iPhone. Do you understand that everybody's going to have one of these, and every year they're going to rewrite the software, and every year there's going to be an upgrade, and you're trading the stock? It's the same thing with Bitcoin. Do you understand that this is the internet of money, and the world is stuck in the telegraph and phone lines and television? Do you understand what this is? Okay? And I have no freaking clue if it's going to be 120 grand or 1.2 million 3 years from now in 1,054 days. I don't know. It's probably not going to be 10 million, and it's probably not going to be 10,000. It's probably going to be somewhere in that order of magnitude. And we know that with extremely high confidence because something following a power law over 8 orders of magnitude is very, very, very statistically improbable to break. Unless, of course, your y-axis being dollars breaks, but that's a separate conversation another time. The point is, the expected value for Bitcoin in terms of the power law is $350,000, 1,054 days from now. When Bitcoin was 19 grand in 2023, many people I talked to said they had cash waiting on the sidelines because they said Bitcoin's going to crash another 40% down to $12,000. And how idiotic does that sound today? Right? I had these conversations. I had the one-on-one consulting calls with people. I read the comments. I made the posts. The exact same things are happening right now in 2025. Okay, I had so many of these conversations. So many of them are burned in my memory. People that had tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of dollars of cash sitting on the sidelines that are Bitcoiners that understand Bitcoin. And I would have the conversation with them and I would say, I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you what to do. But I think this is probably a risk-adjusted time. I mean, Bitcoin is down 73% over the course of the last 18 months. We just had an FTX crash. I know that your little TA chart says Bitcoin's going to 12 grand. I know you think Binance is about to go under, but but of course they would say, yeah, but Luke, I got $1 million right now. I can buy, whatever. I could buy 40 or 50 Bitcoin, but if Bitcoin goes down another 40%, down to $12,000 a coin, I can buy 80 Bitcoin. These were the conversations I was having back then, right? And some of them didn't take that advice And they sat on the sidelines, and Bitcoin went up to $29,000 over the course of the next 3 months. And they're like, oh yeah, well, we were just at 16,000. Yeah, so yeah, sure, Luke, you're wrong. But when it goes back down below 15 grand, I'll buy again. And guess what? It literally never did. And some of them, I mean, I don't know. They lost 80 to 90% of their Bitcoin, or not quite that much, but they lost 70% of their Bitcoin purchasing power in the Bitcoin network because Bitcoin appreciated so much over the course of those couple of years. And my point is to say, I have no idea what's going to happen. Bitcoin could go to 60 grand, right? And again, as I've said in previous weeks, and this has been really hard for a lot of people here, but if you have leverage, if you have margin calls, if you have trading positions where you're going to get liquidated at 80, 70, or $60,000 of Bitcoin, please reduce that risk now. You can book a call with me. I am horribly behind, mostly because of Thanksgiving when it comes to this. I warned people as much as I did in previous videos, but please have a conversation, at the very least begin thinking about it, because that is a possibility. We might go to 60 grand. I don't think we will, but we might. Said the same thing in 2022. Go back and look at my videos. But for the rest of you that aren't in that position, I think now is an excellent risk-adjusted time to consider getting or increasing an allocation to Bitcoin. Because historically, we've had 6 or 7 of these crashes over the last few years, and even more if you zoom out even beyond that, and they get even larger the farther back in time you go. But the point is, I think it's a risk-adjusted time. I'm not saying anything that is new for you to hear, but I think it's what people need to hear. Okay, we were at $16,000. We were at $16,000 Bitcoin only 3 weeks earlier. FTX had just crashed, and everyone. And again, I'm saying this, and I am being repetitive here, and I know that, and I thank you for your patience, but it is so important. Everybody right now is so pessimistic on Bitcoin, and they're saying stupid stuff. Oh, Michael Saylor gets liquidated at, whatever, X price per Bitcoin, which is just not true, right? They're saying, oh, what about this? What about that? Okay, people in 2022 were terrified Binance was about to go under. Okay, FTX just went under. Everyone was afraid of Binance. Everyone, because Terra Luna had just gone under, their algorithmic stable Ponzi coin, and Binance also has the Binance coin. So everybody was theorizing Binance coin is next, and Binance is about to go under. We're going sub below 10 grand Bitcoin, Luke, and you're irresponsible for making a video. But you can look back. I made the videos. I said at these levels, Bitcoin is going to $100 million a coin. I said that at that time in those videos. I made the videos. You can look back. You might have to scroll down 500 videos to get there, but I made those videos saying Bitcoin's going to be $100,000 within 5 years. I said that with confidence. And here we are, 2 years ahead of schedule, where I thought we would be, and Bitcoin is now 93% of the way to $100,000, and people are angry, and they're frustrated, and they're terrified. Even I was not optimistic enough on a 5-year timeline. And I've already scheduled this post that I'm reading to you from. I've already scheduled it to post in the future, so we will see how this ages. We will see if this ages like milk or like wine, but I really think it's going to age more or less well, whether it's 200 or 400 or whatever grand a coin, right? So in the same way that when Bitcoin was 19,000, a 40% crash would take you down $12,000. Right now we're sitting at about $92,000 of Bitcoin at the time of recording. It's a different price by the time you're watching it, obviously. It's moving a few grand every few hours, but a 40% crash from here would take us back down to $55,000 per Bitcoin. And this is a level that a lot of people are talking about right now. Luke, it's a Bitcoin bear market. Bitcoin's going back to 55 grand. After all, we're at $55,000 Bitcoin only 65 weeks ago, right? Yeah, you're right. We might go there. But I think it's very possible we don't. And so even if by October 22nd, 2028, we're only, quote unquote, at $250,000 per Bitcoin, it means your purchasing power has 2.5x, nearly 3x from the current level today. Okay, if you're watching this and you have $3 million of Bitcoin, you're going to be knocking on that $10 million door probably within the next 3 years, right? Or if you have $10,000 of Bitcoin, you're going to be sitting at probably close to 50 grand, if not 100 grand of Bitcoin, because you're going to be DCAing. Your income is still a large lever mover in your stack accumulation goals, right? I mean, no matter where you are, whether you got 10 grand, 100 grand, a million, 10 million, 100 million, or more or less of Bitcoin, you need to understand, even if the returns aren't as good for the next 1,054 days as the previous 1,054 days, you still have less to come with the future in the past, and it's going to go up. Even if the returns diminish, and I personally don't think they will, the next few years are better than the last. for you in terms of purchasing power. You know, we could stay below this green line. We could stay below the lower half of the power law channel for the next few years, and you're still going to have a dramatic increase to your purchasing power, right? And historically, it's not unreasonable to think we flirt with that purple line. You know, there are many times in Bitcoin's history, and again, I know it's a whole order of magnitude we're looking at here with the power law, but there are many times in Bitcoin's history that it has gone to the purple line, right? In fact, I think it's done it basically 4 times. We did it the first time in 2011 when Bitcoin went to $28. We did it the second time in 2012 when Bitcoin went to $1,100. We did it the third time when Bitcoin went to $22,000, or not there, $19,000. And then, of course, $60,000 in 2021. And we've not been there in the last few years. And so my point is, I think $200,000 to $400,000 Bitcoin is easy. And I think it's possible, it's totally possible. I think we could have $1 million Bitcoin before 2029. You know, without hyperinflation of the dollar, without a massive, catastrophic event. I mean, just continuing the trend it's done for the last 16 years, following the channel and oscillating around, I think it's totally, totally possible. And so, again, the internet of money is priced to 8% of the Telegraph, and people are upset, they're angry, and they're sad, they're depressed, they're nihilistic. Some people are cashing out, some people are panic selling, some people are panicking for other reasons. But again, think from a technologist perspective. Bitcoin is the internet. Gold is the Telegraph. Internet should be worth at least 5 times more than what the Telegraph is worth. Okay, and I mean at least. Literally, it should be worth millions of times more. You can't send a Joe Rogan podcast through Telegraph, or at least you can't efficiently, right? It's the same kind of difference we're talking about here, right? Gold is so antiquated. Gold is so outdated that the Dutch Empire 400 years ago obsoleted gold by inventing the stock market to compete with gold, right? Gold is so ancient. It's 400-year-old technology. It is literally the Telegraph. And I'm not saying that hating on gold. I'm a big fan of gold, and I hope it keeps going up, right? Because gold is the second best thing to Bitcoin, right? I used to own physical gold, right? The point is, the internet is literally millions of times better than the Telegraph from a technological standpoint. And the market cap, so to speak, of the internet relative to the Telegraph today is literally, effectively, infinitely more valuable. It's going to be the same thing with gold and Bitcoin. You might have to give it 50 or 100 years, but that's where it's going. And right now, Bitcoin's at 8% of the Telegraph network of the stored value. So in summary for today's video, I know it sucks. I know this Bitcoin price fall sucks. I'm losing zero sleep on it. I can assure you that. I'm losing sleep, but I'm losing sleep mostly because of stress around trying to help people figure out how to not get liquidated and lose most of their money, so I'm losing a little sleep with that, to be honest. But for me personally, and for Bitcoin, the asset, sleeping like a baby, because none of that matters, right? As you know, the dollar is trending to zero. And so why does it matter if Bitcoin trends down in dollars for a little bit? $100,000 of Bitcoin will be back before you know it. And you'll blink, and you'll be 5 years older, and you'll have a net worth 5 times higher. You'll blink, and all of a sudden, it's going to be 2030, and your loved ones are going to be 5 years older. Your body's going to be 5 years older. You're going to be a little bit slower. You're going to have a little more wrinkles. Life's going to go on. But your Bitcoin will be worth, 3 to 10 times more than what it is right now. So at least that's nice, right? So my point is, enjoy your life. Don't waste your time speculating about, are we going to 80K or 100K next? Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And maybe I'm too pessimistic. Right now, I'm going to get a lot of hate comments saying, Luke, you're too optimistic talking about $400,000 Bitcoin. But I think that could be too pessimistic. If we hit the upper bound of that power law, that could literally be $1 million Bitcoin in the next few years. I'm not saying that's the most probable scenario, but I am saying it's possible. I think it's going to take longer than 2028, but it's a non-zero probability, and so you better be ready for that. You better be long and exposed. And so there are years in Bitcoin, there are years where nothing happens, and there are months where a decade happens, right? Look at the Bitcoin price. Forget the early days of Bitcoin. Look at 2018. 2018, Bitcoin only went up 30% from March of 2018 until May 2020, right? Like, so forget that. Look at just the last 5 years. Okay. Bitcoin did nothing for 8 months in 2024. Bitcoin did nothing for like a year in 2021. And Bitcoin has done basically nothing over the last year other than be flat and go up and go down in this $90,000 to $120,000 range. It's been very, very boring for most people. So there are years where nothing happens, and then there are months where a decade happens, right? You have this period where we go from $27,000 of Bitcoin to reaching screaming all-time new highs before the halving in 2024, right? I mean, you don't know. Well, when it comes to life, you don't know when your last day on Earth is. Like tonight could be the last night. I hope not. But when it comes to the Bitcoin price, you don't know when the last day is, but Bitcoin's going to be at this price. For all I know, Bitcoin could literally never be $93,000 again after today. I think that's unlikely, and that'd make this video even more funny. But the point is, nobody knew on January 14th, 2023, that it would be the last day, likely ever, that Bitcoin would be under $20,000 a coin. Nobody knew that. You know, people had guesses, but nobody knew that. And now we know that in retrospect, Bitcoin would have to fall another like 80% from here or whatever to get back down there. I don't think it's going back down there, right? So much has changed in the last few years. So don't get caught by missing this, by being on the sidelines and holding a bunch of cash or waiting. And so what am I doing right now and encouraging my clients and anybody watching this video? What I encourage you to do, I encourage you, instead of wasting time watching the YouTube videos with your trading course or the indicators or the on-chain stuff, like sure, you might learn something from that, but it's not a useful, like, so what? You spend all this time, like, how is it actually going to change your strategy? It doesn't, right? So I would say instead, focus your time on figuring out how to buy more Bitcoin. Okay, this is literally what I do for my job at work. I spend very little time with my clients helping them speculate on what the Bitcoin price is going to do. We spend a lot of time figuring out how to help them get signature loans to buy more Bitcoin, how to use arbitrage strategies to buy more Bitcoin, how to help the family or the IRA or the business or the church or whatever, how to help them buy more Bitcoin, right? That's where the time is. That's where the value is. And that's where you should be putting your time, because soon you will be sitting on a net worth 5 times larger than what yours currently is. And you will need to be better at taxes, estate planning, loan underwriting, and security than you currently are. See, this is the problem I see all the time. People get so distracted for years worrying about the Bitcoin price, and then the Bitcoin price goes up dramatically, and now they're like, oh my gosh, I had $200,000 of Bitcoin. Now I got $800,000 of Bitcoin, and I'm really nervous about this or that or the other. And then they become stressed, and now they have to combat 3 years of education into the course of 8 months, and that's really, really stressful, when the whole point of Bitcoin is it's supposed to be buying your time back, right? So my point is, don't waste your time speculating on the price of Bitcoin. Spend it focusing on increasing your stack and protecting what you already have. In my opinion, holding cash here is a bad risk-adjusted bet, and it's likely a waste of your time. And there are plenty of reasons to be happy with Bitcoin's price performance, despite the recent 35% crash. The Telegraph is the financial equivalent of the telegraph, technology that was outdated for the Dutch, 400 years ago. That is currently worth nearly $30 trillion, and Bitcoin is barely worth $2 trillion, 8% more or less of gold's market cap. And gold is going higher from here, because even though the telegraph is ancient and antiquated and outdated, it still has qualities that the stock market and the bond market have not been able to replicate. But Bitcoin deserves to be multiples larger than gold, let alone stocks and bonds. And so I have no idea if it's going to be in the low 6 figures or the low 7 figures in 1,054 days, but I think it's going to be somewhere between that. And, if it's just a mere $300,000-$400,000, people are going to look back and they're going to say, wow, the last 4 years have been really boring. Bitcoin's only up 300%, and it's crashed like 50% all these times over the last few years. And it's just human psychology. It's just how it goes. So anyway, how did I do, future me? I'm scheduling this to post also in the future. When I recorded this on December 3rd, 2025. Bitcoin was now $93,000 a coin. Bitcoin just fell 35 or so percent in the last couple of months. And right now, it seems like everybody is predicting that we're going to $30,000 to $70,000 Bitcoin next. Maybe we do. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to look like egg in my face, but I don't know. Put it in the comments below. How did I do? So anyway, stay the course, stay focused. 400 grand of Bitcoin feels like forever away, but it's really not. You just got to let time pass, and I think we'll be there before you know it. All right. Goodbye.